time, hasn't it?
Just a little bit.
I've been in some really dark places with my mental health to the point of where I thought the exact same as Meghan. I've even gone further, and I'm here. Did I publicly speak about the fact that no one knew I was African Indian in the industry for the very first half of my career? I'm the only person of Indian heritage to be in Les Mis, Phantom and Wicked. It took me ages, if I'm honest to say. I'm stagey, and I am, and I love it.
Hello, mister.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Very well.
Sorry, I'm a bit late there.
Oh, you're all right. You're quite all right.
It's just trying to get the. Trying to think, am I on a good angle? I know it sounds stupid. Am I on a good angle? Am I not?
Your hair's looking good. Your hair's looking amazing.
My hair, really?
Well, I wasn't sure if you were going to sport a beanie.
Can you imagine? I'm just putting a pillow down. Bear with me.
Well, no,
there we are.
I was winding Matt Croak up the other day for wearing his on The Voice. And then
really?
Back, you wore yours. And
yeah, I was the original beanie guy on The Voice. Yeah. No, I weren't. There was other people that were wearing beanies before me on there. Yeah. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. It's been a crazy time, hasn't it?
Just a little bit. What a year.
I know, what a crazy year. Like, I can't believe that I've nearly been in, because we moved house actually during the first lockdown, me and my husband. So to actually now think that we're actually nearly in this house a whole year and I've not worked, like, done other little things, but nothing. I was meant to be in the Prince of Egypt. It's crazy. Like,
I remember seeing your post about, was it the stamp duty that you were?
Yeah.
Did all that get sold?
No, we didn't. We literally, they announced the stamp duty like a few weeks later, or whatever, by like 3 weeks or something. We missed out on all of that stamp duty thing by that. And we're talking like thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
Like that during this whole period would have been really beneficial, because they've not really supported many people in the arts. So to actually have had that would have been a fantastic thing to have had. But listen, I've got my house.
Yeah.
And I'm here. Like, when you look at it, like, as awful as it is, and it is horrible, when you look at other places around the world, we are very fortunate. So I just have to keep reminding myself of that every time.
So was buying a house something that you'd planned at the beginning before even Prince of Egypt? Was it something that you felt you're going to have job security and go into that?
Yeah, it was job security. Like, that's the crazy thing. Like, we sold our first house. So we bought our first house like back in 2016. And so we sold that, and then we obviously bought this house. And I just thought, well, job security, I've got that. Like, at least I know I always go into this, and I always hope a show lasts forever if I ever do anything. And you're like, okay, but I always go into a show thinking there's the potential that it may not last forever, because you just never know what the audience's reaction. Obviously, I don't think we are as in the hands of the critics in comparison to like Broadway. I think we thrive slightly differently over here in the West End. So I think that in my head, I was thinking, well, there's some security there, and my husband with his job and with me. And I was like, okay, no, we'll be good. We'll be good to do that. And then we were meant to have actually been in November, just before we started rehearsals.
Right.
But that's how long it took until we got there. It was like, what, 4 or 5 months until we had exchanged and we got in. It was crazy.
And how's it looking? Have you had plenty of time to do it, what you wanted with it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the throne, the pink throne. So I've actually upcycled a lot of stuff. Like, during this whole time, I'm obsessed with interior design. Like, I'm obsessed with it. And it's actually something I'm actually looking into because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much doing someone else's house. I say that, but you never know, I might. I'm going to be doing my mum's, so that's a good thing. But I've literally, like, we've done a lot that I would never have done before. And I know everyone's like, oh God, precious, but I wouldn't have peeled off wallpaper and paint off banisters and learned how to tile and like paint and all of these sort of things. I wouldn't have ever done that before. It would never have. I would have just been like, okay, I've got to get someone in. But even stupid things like radiators, looking and fixing things like that. Obviously, there's stuff that we had to get done that was above my sort of job remit, should we say? But yeah, like it's been a weird but kind of reflecting time on the house. But then obviously with a load of personal things, time to reflect and everything that's going on. So it's been quite eye-opening and beautiful, even though slightly tragic with everything that's going on around.
Yeah, understandable though.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the Prince of Egypt. So I managed to get, I was there on press night.
Amazing.
When we were delayed by a whole...
Spoke.
Yeah,
I spoke
afterwards because I met your parents.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Adrian was like, there's Liam's dad. I was like, oh my God, he's a big guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a show.
Yeah.
I mean, when it does come back, I don't know how that ensemble are going to be match fit and ready to go because it's so physical.
I know. That's one of the big challenges I think all shows face. I think vocally it's going to be quite tough for people that have to sing stuff that isn't, you have to train it into your body. People forget that vocal folds are a muscle. They aren't something, yes, they have that memory, but it's just like a sprinter. If a sprinter stops their training regime, they're not going to be ready to just go straight off the bat as soon as the gun goes and be like, yes, there they are. It takes time to get prepared. And I think that's been one of the big challenges for myself personally, and I know other people, is how can we be prepared? Because it's constantly changing, it's constantly moving, the dates, the times, the preparation, and it takes a lot of mind manipulation in a way to get yourself ready. Like I've put on weight in comparison to where I was, so I've got to lose that. I've also got to get myself show fit vocally, where I'm singing some, as you would have heard, some quite high notes out of nowhere, all of a sudden singing so low. And Stephen Schwatrz material is renowned for being quite acrobatic in the vocal ability. And I think one of the joys about Ramesses is also a bit of a curse, is that he goes on, I think personally, the biggest emotional journey that is quite tiresome on your voice, but he also has to hit some notes out of nowhere. There's no sort of preparation in the steps of the steps to make sure you're there. It's like, I'm really angry, really low, hitting all these notes, sustained, and then all of a sudden this like B or A, like A sharp or whatever will come out of nowhere. And that's when you're like, whoa, okay, so I've got to get that ready. But the dancers, as you would have seen, I think it's personally the hardest choreography in the West End. Yeah.
It's so demanding, and so the way it's all coordinated, and they obviously make the props and everything. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, Cheesman, our choreographer, is, I think, a genius. I want people to allow him to explore other avenues that he would love to do, like something like being a choreographer for something like Cinderella or Rodgers and Hammerstein, doing something, because his mindset of what he did on So You Think You Can Dance, especially as a black choreographer, he strives to want to do other things to show that he is adequate and capable, and he is. Like, he's phenomenal, so inclusive, so allowing us to explore and change and manipulate. And he's, for me, like, one of the joys of that production was having someone that is so open-minded in the room and willing to try and challenge and push. And that's beautiful. And I know the ensemble really benefited from that whole process. It was like a creative process that they were involved in. So that's props to both Sean and Addie, who's Sean's assistant on it. And she is like phenomenal. What she remembers, what she does. And it's beautiful. And also for me personally, to see two people of color in that position is really, really beautiful as well.
Because that is the thing about this production as well. It's so well cast with regards to diversity. And it shows that it can be done. Yeah. There's no excuses, because it's a huge cast as well.
Yeah, I can't remember what the numbers are. You might know better. I think it's in like mid-30s, isn't it? Or something like that, I think. Like, it's quite, I should know really. But that's also one of the big things that I'm so proud of Neil and Michael and DreamWorks with Chris and Brian, even like through the creative team, even though some of the creative team is predominantly white, I think one of the big pros that they've really pushed is they wanted to have a diverse cast. So yes, the show is set in Egypt, but it's diverse in the sense of different cultures, different ethnicities, different backgrounds of religion and of faith and spirituality. And it's beautiful to actually feel like you're a part of something that reflects society, it reflects the world that you're in. And I really enjoy that. And I also feel a sense of a family that understands how important it is for this to succeed for that reason. Granted, in every production, getting representation backstage is still a huge challenge. And also further up in terms of like producing, directing, if you go further, that is a huge thing that is combating. But I know that the producers of our show are actively a part of changing that and pushing that forward and being a part of the agenda in everything that they choose to do from now on. We've had great relationships through this show in the sense of it's just grown. And I think that all came from both Stephen and Scott Schwatrz had a really beautiful moment during rehearsals where we sat down and we spoke about what faith means to us, all individually. And it opened up this safe space because obviously our story is a story that is well known, obviously, within faith, but it also goes across so many cultures and different backgrounds. And so it was a really beautiful exercise that they did. And I'm really proud of them for opening that door because it made us all feel so comfortable.
And were you a young kid who watched Prince of Egypt? I know you're obsessed with Whitney Houston when you were a kid. So
yeah.
Were you one of those that was singing Whitney and Mariah?
Yeah, I wasn't, I'm not going to lie, my riffs as a kid weren't as good. They weren't as slick as I feel like they're at now. Everyone will be judging me, your riffs slick, Leo. But I was, yeah, like I always remember, especially the Prince of Egypt, like, because my mum's Catholic, my mum's Irish, and my dad's African Indian. And so he's from Nairobi in Kenya. And I always remember watching, I was obsessed with like Michael Jackson. I was really obsessed with Michael Jackson. I was obsessed with Whitney Houston. I was obsessed with like Luther Vandross, Alexander O'Neill, all these like real old school sort of like R&B soul singers. Because that was the music that my dad listened to a lot of music, but that was something that I always watched all these like concerts and stuff that my dad would show or talk about or listen to the music. And I always remember watching Disney films and I loved Disney, but they never looked like me as a young boy. They always were like yellow and they never really, or they were white. So they never really looked like the tone that I was seeing in my household. And so for me, the Prince of Egypt was through obviously Bible, like in terms of my religion, my upbringing, but then also in terms of like the culture on my dad's side, on the Black side of my family, it was huge because it was the first animation that looked like us. It was like brown people on a film, like in an animated film that was successful and talking about a subject matter that we could relate to. And it was so powerful. And I always remember growing up feeling some sort of connection. And I had a connection to even Aladdin. And I think that was because of my Indian roots, that there's so many little moments in my childhood that I'm like, wow. And then when you're older, you look back and go, gosh, I can see why I was so attached to that. Like I can see when you break it down and you think about, and you're talking to your cousins about the song and the film. And we were all talking about, I always remember that joy of talking about these films like Aladdin and the Prince of Egypt, because it was like, that's me. Like, that's us. Like, it's so rare. And you forget as a child, they're so malleable in their mindset that little things like that, they impact you. And I'm so proud of the fact that my mum and dad encouraged me in particular and my brothers to just enjoy what we enjoyed, to do what we wanted to do throughout life. But it's one of the big things that I'm really proud of is the fact that they really encouraged me to just watch what I wanted to watch and talk about these matters like very openly around the dinner table.
And you've spoken before about how you were grateful to have been brought up in Coventry because it was such a diverse city. And now looking over the past year, especially most recently with Meghan and Harry, and I know you're very kind of passionate about that, because that was a big deal when Meghan was introduced to the royal family. I remember a lot of people felt that was a turning point. It was going to change things. So how has it been for you to kind of watch this all play out?
It's interesting because I genuinely mean this. I always enjoyed the royal family. I always championed them. And I think that came from my parents, because my mum, being Irish, she really rallied around Diana. Like, my mum's side of the family are still very, very pro Diana. And very sympathetic to the situation that both Diana and Charles were put into, because it's quite traumatic. Let's be honest, it's awful what happened with Diana and Charles, but it's also traumatic for Charles to be forced to marry someone that he actually didn't love. That's quite traumatic. Given all of their privileges, what they're entitled, all that sort of stuff, it's irrelevant. Love is love at the end of the day. And I think for me, my mum is a white woman and my dad is a black man, black Indian man, should we say. But my dad had to be introduced to my mum's side of the family. And that was very hard. And my mum and dad speak about that quite openly. Even as a teenager, I'd ask those questions. I've never delved into it like I have recently. And it was hard. Like, both sides of the family struggled. My dad's side, like, his parents were a lot quicker to move on accepting, but I think that was because they actively knew that they came over to this country, so it was going to be a possibility. But also, my dad denied his culture and his heritage publicly, but family-wise, it was there all in its glory. But publicly, it was like, my dad speaks different languages and never chose to speak any of those languages to us growing up. It was an active choice that he made. And I think one of the big things is being a person of color in society, it's like you live two different lives. And I felt that, like, I live a life where I feel like I can be myself around my family and my friends that truly know who I am. But then I have to I no longer do, put on an armor to know that that is what would be accepted within the world, even within this industry. And you create this sort of persona because you know that in your head, if I was truly to be who I was back then, I think there's a huge change that is happening. I wouldn't have been accepted. I publicly speak about the fact that no one knew I was African Indian in the industry for the very first half of my career. And I deliberately hid that because I felt like I wouldn't be given the opportunities that I had been given if they knew I was a person of color. I don't think I would have played a lot of roles. Prime example is Link Larkin in Hairspray. That never would have came about. I think a lot of other roles wouldn't have happened if they knew. Not I don't know if they actively would have avoided me, but I just don't think I would have been given an opportunity. And that's what it's about. It's about opportunity. But the whole Meghan and Harry thing really resonates with me because it is something where I feel my family had to constantly battle stigmas and things that happen. And I do even to this day. And I don't think there can be any two sides or three sides, as people are now saying, to this story. There are who's saying what and everything. But when it comes down to one's personal relationship with mental health, they're telling the truth or not. I have mental health issues. I've struggled with mental health. I publicly speak about it as an actor. I've been in some really dark places with my mental health to the point of where I thought the exact same as Meghan. I've even gone further and I'm here. But it's those sort of things that you shouldn't question that. That's not up for a discussion or debate. And that's the same with racism. Whether it was said out of context or whatever, it still was racist. And so given they're still very privileged people, they're talking about not having money, you've got way more money than a lot of us. So I think that sense of entitlement is really out of touch. But in terms of the racism and the sense of the mental health, I don't think that is something that people should be questioning, or that Meghan or Harry have to prove to those points, because you shouldn't have to prove racism. You shouldn't have to prove mental health issues. It's one's own lived experience.
And obviously, there's a question of people now condemning her for speaking out, when obviously recently we've been encouraged to speak up and talk about your feelings, and when somebody does, they're then kind of chastised for doing that. And like you say, you are very open about your feelings, and you use Twitter, as you said, as a kind of therapy to like kind of offload. But is that right? Is it appropriate for someone in a public position? How do you feel about that?
I feel like the problem, I think, in terms of society, one of the big things that I think that is quite amazing about, I can relate it to on a personal level, but also within the industry. I think one of the big things that I really, during this whole time with coronavirus, I've reflected a lot on my own privilege. I've been very privileged in comparison to a lot of my friends, because I am fairer skinned, I am mixed race, but a lot of my friends that are equally as talented, if not more, haven't been given the opportunities that I have. I had the opportunity to deny my heritage to survive, which is sad when you think about it. But I feel like one of the big things in general is we never talk about issues publicly. We never, in the UK in particular, we don't ever have debates. We don't discuss these things openly to understand. I mean, Brexit was the prime example that we did not know the country was that split until that decision was made. Yeah. And I think in that moment, and even like with unconscious bias, we still have a lot to learn. I have so much to learn in terms of the community that I'm a part of, the queer community. I do not know everything to do with the queer community. I still do not know everything about the Indian culture and African culture of my family. But that doesn't mean that if you are learning and inquisitive and using your platform to find out, to get answers, to hear what other people have to say, and also speak your lived experience, it doesn't mean that you think you are right. It means you're trying to progress and make the industry or the world or society a more inclusive place. And that's all it is. It's about making sure that everyone is represented and given equal opportunity in life. And I think that should be a beautiful thing. I mean, one of the big shocking things for me is in this industry, I'm of obviously African Indian heritage, and I'm the only person of Indian heritage to be in Les Mis, Phantom and Wicked. Like that's scary. Like that's the sort of thing that I go, wow. Like, and so I think there is a responsibility of, however small my platform is, I will use it, because I've had a tough life, truthfully, but I've also had an amazing life, and I've met amazing people along the way. But it's been a hard slog to get where I am, and I've gone through some things that I wouldn't wish upon anybody. And so if I can use my platform, as small as it is, to make sure that no one has to make any mistakes that I made, or go through anything that I've gone through, or just guide someone on a path and give them an insight of knowledge that I've learned on my journey that is forever growing and ever evolving, I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I could do. And I think the big key thing is that is exactly what the arts industry is about. It's about learning and passing it on. It's about giving that knowledge for it to constantly grow, to ever move forward. And I think when we aren't curious or keeping our minds open, we just close off, and it doesn't benefit the work that you're doing. You should constantly remain open and curious, because the people that we always navigate to, or we feel we have a connection to in life, are always the ones that are just their true authentic selves. And the true authentic selves genuinely come from a place of staying curious. And that's what I want to give back. I love this industry. I love performing. I love all the shows. It took me ages, if I'm honest, to say I'm stagey, and I am. And I love it. I love that I'm stagey. I love theatre. I love TV. I love film. I love music. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. But we have this whole thing of being like, if you're stagey, you're ugh. I think, so what? The fact that people enjoy their job or this industry is a beautiful thing. Like, yes, it has its challenges, and I'm fighting them and I'm pushing them, and we'll constantly knock on those doors.
So that brings us nicely up to your love of music, though, as well as theatre. So obviously you've talked about your influences when you were younger. At the time that you applied to be in The Voice, you were in Les Mis. So at that point, what was kind of propelling you to that side of the industry?
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't get the opportunity to go further on that, The Voice. Some people know because I did a lot of interviews after, but I actually started out in the music industry before I went into musical theatre.
Right.
Yeah, so I started out and I had like record deals that didn't happen. I was working with big producers, big artists, lots of things. And funny enough, even through a management company that I was with, they wanted for me to change my identity. And there was this whole thing that I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. This feels really against who I am. And also, I'll be honest, in my head, my sexuality was something that I was like, so I was quite young, I was in my like teens, and I was like, something's not clicking right in my head. Like, I'm not sure, I don't want to say not right, because it is right, but I wasn't able to digest or compute what was happening and my feelings and my emotions at that age. And so during that whole period, I actually started out. So I actually was in the music industry. So I have a huge connection to the music industry. I love it. It's a lot more cutthroat in comparison to the theatre industry, but I think that gave me the thicker skin, and also probably the mindset to know how to play the game in some sense. And I will always have a special place in my heart for the music industry because it's where I began. My dad pretty much brought me up on every piece of music you could think of, every artist. We were a very musical family in the sense of music, but we never really, I played instruments. My brother started, my older brother, but he stopped. I used to play the violin, like piano, drums. I wanted to learn the saxophone. That was the big thing. And because I weren't allowed to learn the saxophone because the school was making cuts to the music department, I just stopped playing everything out of being a brat because I didn't get what I wanted. So I was like, well, then I'm not playing. I'm going to stop it all, which now I'm like, I wish I didn't, because I can't play a thing. I can play around, but never like to the level I was at. So yeah, but the music industry will always, hence why I went on The Voice. I will always feel like I want a connection. And I wanted to go back into the music industry. That's why I went on it, but it didn't happen.
Well, I mean, you got 4 turns, which is better than Kerry Ellis for a start. But then watching it back, it was incredible how ferociously the other 3 judges fought your corner after Will obviously picked somebody else. And you saw it like in your face, the kind of like the anguish. And I know a lot of it was down to the feelings about your nan, but what else? I mean, what was going through your mind when all that was happening? What drove to that point?
I think for me, it was, I actually had, it's so bad, I can't remember the gentleman's name who was the guitarist on the show, but he was the guitarist on Hairspray. So I'd done Hairspray prior. Right. So I want to say it's John, but it's not. But let's just say it is John. I'm so sorry if you're watching, I forgot the name. And anyway, so he was there and he was at the back of the stage. And I knew it wasn't a great performance. And I knew that I didn't want to sing that song. Yeah. I didn't want to sing that song. I was like, this isn't me. I was like, I have to make, and this is the thing. Like now, if I was to be in that position, I would stand my ground and say, I'm not singing that song. I need to think of another song. Yeah. But then being young and like desperate in a way, there was a desperation of wanting to just please, and that's something that I feel the industry and like in terms of my life and upbringing, that I felt like I couldn't disappoint or be the difficult one or the one that says the diva, should we say, or the aggressive one because I'm standing up. So I just went along with it, and I was like, I remember it actually it's a tone down from what it originally should be in. And I remember being like, okay, this is just not me. And I remember after I did the performance, I was like, I can only do the best that I can do on this song. There's nothing else I can do. I felt I sang okay. I didn't feel like I sang great. And John, who I was singing opposite, he's a lovely guy. We had a really good like friendship during this whole TV show. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that there was the potential that I wouldn't get picked because it's 50-50. But I always thought, going by what had happened, I had more chair turns. I also knew that the other coaches were disappointed that I didn't pick them. So there was all of that I thought that could work in my favor. But it all came down to, truthfully, I felt in that moment that I had, for the very first time, said to the world, my name is Liam Tamne, I'm African, Indian, Irish, and I'm gay. And I'd never done that in any of things that I've ever done before.
Yeah.
And I publicly did that. And I felt like in that moment when they said no, I denied my heritage in the musical theatre industry to survive. And then when they then said, no, I'm not going to pick you, I felt like Liam Tamne wasn't good enough. I felt like Liam Tamne had failed. And in musical theatre, when you go for auditions and you don't get a job, of course it hurts because you want it. But there is an element that, I don't know what it is about us actors, but there is an element of being like, okay, this is annoying, I'm gutted, but on to the next one. Because it's never that you aren't good enough if you've got all the way to the final for something. It's just that we just don't think it's right and there was someone that was better than you on the day. That's what it is. And in this moment, I felt like I had failed, that Liam Tamne had failed. And I felt publicly humiliated and rejected. And I never felt that sense of that rejection before. And I couldn't control my feelings. And it was all of that. And then seeing like what people didn't see, but it was very well documented after by all the coaches, was that Tom Jones was fuming. Jessie J stormed off set. They stopped filming for like 2 hours. They lost a third of the audience who got up and left. Danny was really, really hurt by this because they all wanted the potential to steal me. But they had been told that wouldn't be an option. So, and then it played out a completely different way. So, I mean, but at the end of the day, it's a TV show above, truthfully, a talent contest. Yeah. It's a TV show. But I don't wish them any ill feelings or like ill will on them. Like, it is what it is. And it's a great learning curve. Like, I'm actually grateful because after that is when I went into my deep, dark, depressive mental health battle and struggle. And if I hadn't gone through that, I don't think I would be happy with the person that I am today. I'm so happy with who I am today because of that journey. So The Voice actually catapulted that journey for me to be able to sit here and openly talk about mental health issues and suicide and stuff like that, so openly and publicly.
And then after that, so obviously a few years later, you then put yourself up for the Eurovision Song Contest to do it all again. Do you think that was because you'd gone through that and you'd processed it and you felt you had something else to prove? Yeah,
do you know what it is? Exactly that. It was a test to myself. It was a massive test. Like, first and foremost, I love Eurovision. I love it. And that's what I mean. But the thing is, it is what it is. Yes, it's political, but it is what it is. And also, if the opportunity comes about to be able to sing and represent your country, the country that I genuinely, yes, it has its faults, but I love the United Kingdom. Yeah. And so for me, it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I would love the opportunity. I liked the song. Not many people fell in love with the song, but I liked it. I loved the writer. And I was like, yeah, I have a connection with you. Let's do this. I would love to have done one of my own songs, but I was too late to that party. Because they approached me and asked me if I would sing this song. So, but it was a huge test. If I'm honest, it was a test. It was a test for me to go, I went through that with a voice. I've now come through my therapy because I have therapy and I speak about therapy. It's the best thing in the world, personally. And I've gone through that. And then I'm at this place now where I've worked a bit more. I've done this and I want to challenge myself. And it was a little challenge to myself to go, can I do this? And I was like, I could get picked. The numbers aren't as like good as it was before with The Voice, like 50-50. But I was like, because now I've got 5 other people, there's 6 of us. But I was like, let's just see. And when I didn't, I was really proud of myself. I was so proud of myself because one of what I did, like singing on national live television to the amount of people that it goes out to is amazing, but also for how I handled it and for the fact of me as a person, where I was at in my life. I just was in control, whereas before I wasn't in control and my mindset wasn't there when I did the voice. And this time I so was, like, it was what it was. Like, it just came out and was like, well, that was a good experience, on to the next one.
And then in those opportunities, like with the voice and Eurovision, do you then watch the shows afterwards and kind of play it out in your head how it might have been if you'd been in it, or do you kind of resign to the fact that it wasn't meant to be and move on and then still able to enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought about that. I don't think I think that answers the question. I didn't play it out in my head because it was what happened. But I mean, it would have been amazing to have been doing it. But I mean, I wonder how I would have handled the guy trying to run up and grab my microphone. I think I might have.
You'd have hit him back.
Him. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that would have been my response. But bless her, she did handle it very well.
She just grabbed that mic and carried on. She was.
Yeah, good. She really did. She really, really, really just continued. I think. I don't know. No, I don't think. I think I didn't play it out in my head because it was what it was, and I think that shows in a way. Like, I remember actually with the voice, I was like, but I should have. This is not fair. I felt like this sense of entitlement. It should have been me. This isn't right, and I didn't feel that this time. I didn't feel that way of thinking. My mind wasn't playing around like that.
And obviously, when it comes to theatre, and I'm assuming you've been up for parts that you've not got.
Yeah, loads.
How did it feel to them? Do you watch them afterwards and kind of think what if, or again, do you just kind of move on?
Yeah, so a big one that many people say, I've got a really itchy nose, and I don't know if it's like hay fever or whatever, but is itchy nose money? Hopefully I'm coming into money. The big one that I didn't get, well, there's quite a few big ones I didn't get, but one of the ones that a lot of people always say to me is, you should have played Aladdin. I didn't get it. I didn't get it the first year round. It just never happened.
And did you go for it again?
The second time round. They asked me to go in second time round and I went in, but I weren't feeling it. I just felt like to be honest, it sounds awful, I saw the show. So
fair enough.
Yeah, like, it is what it is. It's great for the genie. Like, it's a great show for Genie. I don't think it's good for Aladdin, personally.
I thought you get to go on a carpet.
Yeah, that. I mean, listen, that's like childhood dreams. Like, 100%. Like, that's childhood dreams. But yeah, so, and it just never came out. And the same with Come From Away. I remember Come From Away. Right. That never happened. Years ago, Shrek was another. When I was up for Pinocchio, that never happened. That was quite early on. Another one was Les Mis for Marius. I ended up playing Enjolras, but for Marius, and I think it was the O2. So that was another one. So there's so many shows. I can't, like.
Have you ever been up for Hamilton?
That is a subject that infuriates me.
I saw you performing Hurricane at Paul Taylor Mills Marathon. Yeah.
When I was 17, a hurricane destroyed my town. I didn't drown. I couldn't seem to die. I wrote my way out. Wrote everything down far as I could see. I wrote my way out. I looked up and the town had its eyes on me. They passed a plate around. Total strangers moved to kindness by my story. Raised enough for me to book passage on a ship that was New York bound. I wrote my way out of hell. I wrote my way to revolution. I was louder than the crack in the bell. I wrote Eliza, love lessons until she fell. I wrote about the Constitution and defended it well. And in the face of ignorance and resistance, I wrote a financial system into existence. And when my prayers to God were met with indifference, I picked up a pen, I wrote my own deliverance. In the eye of a hurricane, there is quiet for just a moment. A yellow sky.
Yeah.
And you're brilliant. You nailed it.
I mean, listen, I really appreciate you. And the amount of people that come up to me that ask me about Hamilton, it's unbelievable. Because if I'm honest, that's my jam. That's my playlist. Like when you look at the mixtape, they're the artists that I grew up on. And I rap. Like I love it. Like I love actually everything about the culture of everything to do with music. That's my childhood. That's my life. And so for me, it's always something. I did go in the first time round, but it just didn't happen. It just didn't. I've never been asked to come back. So maybe there's so much to that without going into it.
But then I do remember that, like, everybody went in. They saw a lot of people, didn't they? Right. Because it was such a phenomenon coming over.
And I'd never say never to it. Like, I'd never say never. I want to have an honest conversation about the whole process. But yeah, I would never say never to that show. I think it's a great, like, opportunity for ethnic minorities to be seen. And I absolutely would love to sing that material.
Although you did get to do Spamilton, so...
Yes, there you go. That was the trade-off.
Exactly.
Spamilton was fun. Many people don't know. They're like, Spamilton, what is that? And I'm like, Forbidden Broadway? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, basically, that's what it is.
It was brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah. And playing Lin-Manuel as well. Like, it's funny because I did work in the musical, obviously, as well. And I sang Lin-Manuel material and working.
I'm off on a delivery, and I'm finally on my own.
Off on a delivery.
Delivery, please, and I'm heading to Patano.
Off on a delivery.
Fresh air and exercise, and sometimes I throw in some extra fries. For calling it in today, my world is grey until they send me away on a delivery.
And that's how my relationship with Stephen Schwatrz grew from doing, which is amazing. Like I always say to people, you never know by doing like small productions, film productions, where it leads. And that led to me then playing Ramesses in The Prince of Egypt. So it seems like I always get, I was asked to do In the Heights many years ago, just after The Voice, funny enough. But financially, I wasn't in a place to be able to take what was being offered. And also I wanted to focus on music for a year after The Voice.
You've done so many shows. I wanted to ask about Hair.
Oh, please do. It's my favourite show.
But so that was the American cast that came over.
Yeah.
And how come you got involved?
So I had. How did it happen?
I remember it being renowned for being the first Broadway show with the full transfer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Will Swenson, he was leaving to open up Priscilla, wasn't he, on Broadway? And so then Steele, who was Will's cover, stepped up, and then there was an open space in the company. And I had auditioned for Tara, who was the resident director on it. And I knew Richard, who was the MD. I knew these people and they knew me. And so they reached out to my agent and said, look, we're only doing a very small reach out to people. And they fought and they said, we think Leon would be really right for this. And Michael James Scott, who was sort of there for Diane Paulus, he was representing her in the whole creative team. And he said, I think let's get these people in. And I went in and I sang my own song. And it was really quick. I got a call on like the Monday. I was auditioning on the Wednesday. And they said they had to send the tape over to America for I think there was like 5 or 6 of us. And I just finished playing Link. And I was questioning it at the time. So I remember being like, well, I've just played a juvenile lead and I'm going to go in and being like in the ensemble of the show. I was like, is this a great move for me to be doing? Like, and I was like, do you know what? I saw the show. I want to be a part of it. And I then got a phone call saying, yeah, they want to go with you. They really would like it if you would take the job. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I knew Cameron's office at the time, so they were behind it all. I think I auditioned for them for Les Mis. That's where it all came about with O2. I think that's how it all came about as well. So I had a lot of people on my side, basically. And then when Diane saw it, she was like, yeah, I want Liam to do it. And it was an amazing process because Steele was leaving to obviously now play Berger. I was there taking his track. And I had to come in, and there's this like sort of like induction ceremony into the tribe, as they call it. So I had to create this whole character. My character's name was Odin, and I had to like introduce myself into this tribe, and I created this whole backstory and everything. And I had to do everything with an American accent and talk and do all of this. Like I'm in the show, like in this tribe. And I did it all just before rehearsal, the dress rehearsal for me, because I only had like a week and a bit to learn the whole show, then go on. It was so quick, on my own. And it's the best job I've ever done in my life. The best group of people.
It was like Gavin, Creel, Kaissie, Levy.
Yeah. Caissie's a good friend. Gavin's a good friend. Like they're all really good friends of mine. Like whenever we're in, both me and my husband, or when I'm over on my own in New York, I'm guaranteed to meet at least 3 or 4 of them. Like, I mean, I went and saw, I was recently over just before I did Light in the Piazza in LA, and I went and I was in New York. Me and my husband did a whole tour of America doing certain things, and we started off in New York. And we went and watched Caissie in Frozen and then spent some time there after. It's like, I always go and see people because they are like my family in a way. Like there's something about that show. And another friend of mine, Portia Amare, she did that show, and another production. And everyone that I say when they've done hair, they always say there is something about that show that you feel so connected to it. And I do, like it, the best bunch of people, the best material. I enjoy doing it every single night. Like Sasha Allen, like to hear Sasha Allen singing Aquarius or White Boys, or even just Let the Sun Shine, even hearing Gavin. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the industry and branding, and you, like as an actor, by these American phenomenal people. A lot of people in that show that were in the ensemble have gone on to do phenomenal things. And some of them of what they actually had done prior to doing it in the West End, like the work that they've done. But it will forever hold a really special. I don't think anything major can touch that show for me. Nothing. There's something about it. I had coronavirus and I was pushing through, but we didn't know that at the time. We just thought it was a chest infection. The fact that I'm having a discussion with you about this is a beautiful thing on your platform. Oh, I did. Oh no, I did do Into the Spotlight. Sorry, I was thinking of Leave the Light On. Yeah, I did do that. You're right. I'm so sorry.
I enjoyed your performance. Later this year, I will be running the London Marathon to raise money for the Terence Higgins Trust, the UK's leading HIV and sexual health charity, and I would really appreciate your help. If you would like to sponsor me, you can donate now at justgiving.com/fundraising/thatstagyblog. Check out my new range of That Stagey Blog branded clothing, including hoodies and t-shirts from £14. Available now at thatstageyblog.tmail.com. You talked about Michael, your husband, who you met in Hairspray.
Hairspray, yeah.
Hairspray. How long ago was that then?
Oh my gosh.
How long have you been married?
So we've been married since 2016. So what's that? That's so bad, isn't it? Like 5 years. coming up 5 years.
And how's it been having each other for all this? Because you said you haven't seen your family for the year.
Ages, yeah. Absolute ages. My mum lives in Ireland. Even Mike's like not seen his family, and they're quite close to us. We're now like Surrey. We're like Streatham way, where we live now. And like he hasn't seen his family, and they're all in Surrey, obviously. And my mum lives in Ireland. My family are in Coventry. So it's been really hard. And also, one of the big sad things for me is I have a nephew that's like over a year old, and I've not met him. And that was because and people are like, how? And I'm like, because when he was born in the September, and I had like light in the piazza and everything in LA, and I was coming back, and then I was getting into work and getting myself ready for the Prince of Egypt. And obviously my brother, his first child, he was just settling in with the baby and his girlfriend. And then I went straight into rehearsals for the Prince of Egypt. And then because of the timing of everything, I then continue, then we open with press night. You know that like you just got to focus on the show until you get to press. You focus on the show and then press night. And then I felt I had coronavirus and I was pushing through, but we didn't know that at the time. We just thought it was a chest infection. And I just continued to try and push through. And a load of people were going down, and I was like, I can't, my covers don't know the show. Like, this is going to look really bad. And I pushed through, then it just got to both midweek, and myself and Luke, who plays Moses, we both were like, we can't go any further. And it was really hard. And then during that whole period, then I got ill. Then I have to rest. I then go back to do the show on the Monday, and then they closed the West End on that day. And it was insane, because then at that point it was closed, and then we immediately went into some sort of lockdown, didn't we? Or some sort of. And so then I just couldn't see my family, and then it's opened up, and then it's like, but if you're in London, you can't go, and different tiers. And I was like, let's just be safe. So I'm hoping when I finally can, I will travel up to see him. I've not met him, so I need to meet him.
That's crazy.
I know. I feel embarrassed about that, really, because there were little snippets, but it's just been hard. It's been quite challenging.
And how have you kept yourself? Because I've seen you do a couple of. You did Into the Spotlight, which he.
No, I didn't do that.
Did you not? Which one was you did?
I don't know. I've done.
I saw something.
Yeah, you would have seen the one that I did, the Thespy one with Alice Byrne.
That was
the Schwatrz one. Yeah.
That was it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was Hiba's.
Yeah. Oh, I did. Oh, no, I did do Into the Spotlight. Sorry. I was thinking of Leave the Light On. Yeah, I did do that. You're right. I'm so sorry.
That's me thinking. And I got my. I enjoyed your performance.
Well done. You're right. I did.
How'd you do? I see you met my faithful handyman. He's a little brought down because when you knocked, he thought you were the candy man. Didn't you, freaky? Don't get strung out by the way I look. Don't judge a book by its cover. I'm not much of a man by the light of day, but by night I'm one hell of a lover. I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania.
That was quite a big deal, because obviously he was the same. She was kind of like, just wanted to. I think it was triggered by she'd seen a piece of choreography put together quite distastefully with just an all-white cast, and we were like, how is this still happening?
Yeah, she's amazing. Like, I've actually our friendship has grown. Like, I adore Hiba. Like, our friendship has been so beautiful and blossoms and continues to grow. Like, we actually it's amazing. This is what's amazing about everything in terms of Black Lives Matter and the movement and diversity and representation, is the connections that everyone is now making.
Yeah.
Particularly people of color, that we are actually just talking and listening and helping one another. So many white people. The fact that I'm having a discussion with you about this is a beautiful thing on your platform. It's so beautiful to see that that's happening now. But with my relationship with Hiba, like when she asked me to be a part of it, I was like, yeah. And I sang, actually, funny enough, Sweet Transvestite, and I changed some of the lyrics in terms of like just cast more black and brown. We just passed it in the number. And I deliberately did that because I just wanted it to be a message of this movement has to constantly continue. It has to be on the tip of everyone's tongue. We have to constantly step forward. And like you said, into the spotlight, it's constantly stepping forward into the spotlight, making these issues heard and seen. And I was really proud to be a part of that. And for her and working with Nina, like it's a great, that in Sedgel, like it's a great experience for me. Like I'm really proud of everyone, particularly the two girls on that whole production, but to be a part of it, it was a really beautiful time during this really difficult time.
Are you confident that it is making a difference? Do you think it will do enough?
I always live in hope on this subject matter because it impacts potentially, if we choose to have children, our children. It impacts, like, this is the best thing about the art, is we get the opportunity to challenge people's minds and change mindsets within the space, and particularly in theatre, in the space of like 2 hours. We get that opportunity to really open up people's minds, to make them curious, and to see and hear a story that they wouldn't ordinarily be a part of in their everyday life. And I think that's beautiful. And that is also true in just seeing people on stage, on screen. And so I'm seeing it a lot in straight theatre. I'm seeing it a lot in TV and film, but in musical theatre, it is making a change, but I would be lying if I said that it's in a good place, because it isn't. It's far behind in comparison to the other sectors within the entertainment arts industry. So, but if you then go further with, like I said earlier, with representation backstage, even on creative side, going up into producing, it has a long way to go. But I know now people are listening. I know that people are actively making it a part of their agenda and their companies. So only time will tell. But the best thing about it is that we can now hold people to account because they've publicly stood up and said they support it. So we can now say, well, then show us it.
Yeah. I mean, going back, was it 12 years ago when you did Wicked? So you were opposite. Yeah. So you were playing Fiyero.
Well, I was cover. I was cover Fiyero, yeah.
But you went opposite Alexia.
Yeah.
But in that moment, did you feel, wow, this is an incredible moment?
Yeah, I didn't. It's so weird because it's like we're brainwashed. But that's so bad. Take that back. It's like we were brainwashed in a sense of, and also we couldn't speak about it. And there was like an unspoken rule in a sense that if we were ever going to speak about it, you would never speak about it with any other people in the room unless they were people of color. And so, yeah, it was like a really, and I remember having a beautiful conversation with Alexia during rehearsals. And I was like, we were chatting and stuff. And she was like, she asked me like about my family and everything. And I remember saying, but I never divulged into that conversation as much. And I was always a part of it as I got older and I could trust people, but I was always nervous about who could share that information with people that make the decisions. And because let's be honest, Alexia was the only person of color in the position of a principal role in that production at the time. And then there was myself, Sean, Cindy, Gary. There was like, am I missing anyone else? There was like 4 of us in the ensemble. So it is, but the thing is, because I've been a part of talks about that show and other shows in particular that I've been a part of, and I've had great conversations with producers about those productions and open dialogue, and they're aware of it, and it's not always their fault. And this is the thing. I think colleges have a responsibility. in this because they don't teach a lot of the material that is required. I also think in general society, but I also think we all have a personal responsibility, like to actively just go, let me ask those questions. And I actively now ask the question of going, can you tell me what the representation is in a production that I'm about to be a part of? And because I want it to look like, and I got that basically from Ellen Pompeo from Grey's Anatomy, and I put it up, funny enough, today. I put a whole thing up on my Twitter today stating this. And I think we have to learn and get those little nuggets of information from people that are in those positions, and also just ask those questions. It's not, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, can you just tell me? It's no different than asking what the safety protocols are for COVID.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it is. It's like, well, can you tell me? It's not an insult. It's like, I just want to know before I embark on it, because I want to be a part of productions that are inclusive.
So looking forward, we obviously know that Prince of Egypt will be coming back, and obviously you will go back to it. But beyond that, I mean, you've done so many parts in your career already. You've ticked a lot off. But are there any still that you've still got as a goal on your bucket list?
Yeah, like I would love to play Curly in Oklahoma.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to play any Sondheim, to be honest, because I love the material. But like when I'm older, like I would love to obviously play Sweeney. That is something that would be really great. I love Into the Woods. It's one of my favorite shows. West Side Story is one of my favorite shows. I had the opportunity to be a part of that, but I ended up taking another job. But I would want to play Tony, but I'm not the right ethnicity. So, do you know what I mean? But that sort of is by the by. Like, there's a load of stuff. I also love, I've not seen it, but I'm a huge fan of the film Beetlejuice. I've started to really enjoy the idea of playing a lot of roles that people don't expect me to play.
Yeah.
Because I actually enjoy the challenge. It's like the famous saying that Meryl Streep says, I don't do something if I know I can do it. I want to do something because it challenges me that I feel like I can't. Because that's the best thing. You feel a sense of accomplishment when you do something like Rocky Horror. I would never have thought early in my career that I'd play Frankenfurter. Never.
You did that with Richard Meek, didn't you?
Yeah, he's one of my very, very good friends. Like,
Dominic Anderson.
Pretty married. Huh?
With Dominic Anderson.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, I mean, that must have been hard having to ride around on him.
Exactly. I'm actually grateful that he was really tall because it made things really easier as well. Like it's nothing against small people who think that, but for me, it would just made it really easy, and I felt safe. But I had even like my covers, like they were so strong. And it was a really beautiful experience. And I love the message of that show. I really do. Like, you can be like, just don't dream it, be it. Like, that's one of the most beautiful things. Like, but it was a real, like, that was a whole different experience. I'd never seen the show before, ever.
Had you not?
No, I'd only ever seen the film.
I always wonder how people get through it, because obviously you're so thrown by the audience. Or do you not get thrown? Do you just kind of like embrace it and let it wash over you?
Yeah, like we opened in Brighton, which is amazing, but also scary because there was an expectation. Yeah. There was, they knew the show more than I knew the show. And I always remember thinking, this is one of the big things, as someone of like, sort of colour, I'm just going to say it, someone of colour, basically you feel more of a pressure to be successful, not fail, because you feel like you're failing a lot of people, because the opportunities don't come about that often. And so I felt that quite a bit, and I wanted to be good. Obviously Badella is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so people have their dream frank, and I wanted to be different. But the best thing about it is Christopher Luscombe, the director, he encouraged that. And Nathan, the choreographer, we changed things up, and they got a fresh production, a different version. It was a real joy and like a great a great company. But even in that, this is how crazy it is. Even in that moment, I was the only person of color in that production, and I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And that's how, like, I was aware of it that when I started, but I didn't think about it constantly because I was like, I've just got to survive this. I've just got to get through. Nothing against the production company or the actual actors on the show, but it's just madness that your mindset goes, you're aware of it when you start, but then you're like, I've got to get through this. And that's the challenges that we constantly face.
I think you were involved in the new reworked version of Starlight Express workshop, weren't you? Which they did change it up a bit. I mean, your character, you were a lecturer.
Yeah, that's correct.
That was minced up a little bit.
Yeah, it was, in my heels, which was really good. Arlene was desperate. She was like, I want you to play it like Prince. I feel like we should do it this. And she was all like, I love Arlene. Arlene is so like how she moves, and I just go straight to the point. I love it. And she was really encouraged me to explore that. But so did Andrew. Yeah. And like I really changed some of the vocal lines, and he really went there with David, and like we really just pushed a lot of the material. But yeah, it was really good. Like I never got to see a live production of Starlight Express. I've never seen one. And I think it's a shame in a way, because I think obviously it's beautiful and it's a great work, and a lot of friends of mine have done it, particularly in Germany. And some of them did it at the Apollo Victoria before Wicked, obviously, was there. And then Bombay Dreams, doesn't it, was there before that, sorry. So I felt real privileged really to be asked to be a part of that. They asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. I submitted a tape and they came back and said, yeah, we're going to go with you. And it was really good. It was really different. And it was nice that they put women at the forefront of it. That's beautiful. Like I champion that more. I have a massive, I feel like women can empathize a lot with the issues that we're talking about, being underrepresented. And not given equal opportunity. It's not the same, but they have an understanding. And me personally, I feel like if we have more women in positions of power making those decisions, I think things would be moving a lot quicker.
Yeah. I mean, they are talking about bringing that show over to the UK now and doing an immersive version. So you're quite interested to see if any of your input goes into the final show.
Yeah, I would love that. That's great. Like, it's one of your the dreams, I think, as an actor, that you know that something's gone in there. Like the Prince of Egypt, for instance. So just before the plague start, there's a moment where I kept feeling like something wasn't clicking and it wasn't working. And I went up to Scott and Steve and I said, look, I feel like he just flips out of nowhere. There's no build-up. I feel like he's just going from like literally like 30 to 90. And I feel like something. And they listened and they went away. And then there's a whole section at the start of the plagues, which happens straight off on the Grammy-nominated, should we say, cast album, which is amazing. It literally, the section of the plagues, that whole first section came from me having a conversation. Yeah, at the end of that whole, that conversation was born this piece of material that came out of me having that conversation with Stephen and Scott. So, and that I know will forever be in the production now, which is amazing.
And does Stephen know you did Wicked? Do you ever have conversations about it?
Yeah, because I was fortunate enough that a lot of the creative team came to Wicked, because I was like, I want to say second or third. I'm never remember.
Second, yeah.
So so they still were quite heavily involved, and that's how I built up a really good relationship with Stephen Aremus, who obviously is a very good friend, and like we have mutual friends, obviously. And I met Stephen then, along with Wayne and Joe and the producers. So yeah, like we met way back in 2008.
And you were one of the very first people to do Kinky Cabaret. I remember like 2009, way before Carl even presented it. It was with Dusty O, and you sang a Scott Allen song.
No matter where the journey leads you, if your path leads to someplace new, you'll always have a home in this heart of mine. In my mind. So in your heart. is meant to be.
That's right.
And now
That's
look at
right.
it, that's still going. Would you do it again? Sing one in the morning? Well, you sing anyway at the moment, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, funny enough, I'm literally like, okay, I've got to get myself ready for a show. I actually, that was because I sang a different song. I actually sang a song for Scott in New York.
Wow.
I actually, Kiss the Air. I was happened to be in New York at the same time. It was when I was in Wicked.
Yeah.
And I actually flew over to sing a song. I was doing some other stuff, work there, and then I flew over to sing "Kiss the Air" with Scott and Nat, and I met Natalie Wise there. Like so many people. Who else? I think I met. Did I meet Shoshana there? I met so many people, and Hadley. That's where I first met Hadley Fraser. Was there?
Yes.
Like, because he was doing a lot over there. So they were doing the same concert, this cabaret. And then I sang home at Kinky Cabaret in London.
Which people still think it's about a child, but it's not. It's about his dog.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny because there's a lot about obviously his personal life and stuff, but there's so much like I think what's quite good with Scott's material. It's so relatable.
Yeah.
I mean, in so many ways. Like love it or hate it, it's so relatable. I love it, but he's always been a great supporter of me and my work, and I have with his, and we have many friends in common, many friends.
Well, speaking of Kaissie, because I remember Caissie doing a version of it. I think she was the first woman that I'd seen sing "Kiss the Air" way back at the Hippodrome when they used to do cabarets there.
Oh wow! Was that when she was doing Ghost?
Yeah, and she did a late night cabaret.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm.
I didn't see her do that. It's that whole situation. It's so funny with Ghost as well, because I remember it's so weird. My agent came to see her, and then I was like, Caissie, come and meet my agent. So I was like, come, blah, 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 chat. And David Grinrod happened to be with my agent, and that's who my agent brought in to see. He was like, why don't you come and see, because he wanted to see the show. And then I remember David and Caissie having a conversation. And then the following day, Caissie was like, yeah, I did a lot of the Ghost stuff when they did. I think they were doing it, don't quote me on this, but they were doing like trying it out somewhere in the States.
Yeah.
And and that whole thing then sparked a whole thing from me. It literally came out of them meeting, and in that is mad. Like it, obviously she got the job. I know, she obviously got the job. She'd done that whole thing before, but that whole reminder, that bumping into, it's mad.
She was incredible, because I was the same. I went over to New York and saw Frozen. It was just stunning. Such a like, I'm that kid who grew up watching Disney films, and to see them done well as theatrical pieces, and they just nailed it. I can't wait to see Sam do it.
Oh, Sam's going to be fantastic, and like she's another good friend of mine, and I just think as well, like her representing and the work that she's done, like she's a real force, Sam. Like, and I'm really proud of her, and I'm proud of a lot of people. Like, I'm proud of people that I don't even know, and I'm seeing them really leading the way. Like Sam Tutty, I don't know it, but I just love. He really carries himself really well, and he really is just someone that I think is so talented in what he's doing. Like, it's a beast of a role. Like, do you know what I mean? And he really holds his own. Like, stands his ground, and he's so grateful, and that's beautiful to see. Like, it really is beautiful to see. And I mean, I want to see more people that look like the world that we walk around in. But Sam Tutty deserves every accolade that he gets, because he's such a gracious human being.
Yeah. Oh. Well, on that note, I'm going to let you go.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and you're looking really, really well.
I mean, you're saying, if you only knew, like, I've got a ring light on, I've got, like, I'm cropped. I'm like, if I lifted up my top, I'm wearing a hold it all in. I'm not really.
I mean, are you not there in your stilettos and fishnets? So?
No, it's too early. What time is it? Yeah, it's too early. Too early. The neighbours would be scared.
Right. Well, anyway, take care of yourself.
Yes, you too.
Hopefully see you on the stage very soon.
Yeah, you will. Thank you. Take care.
See you later.
Nice day. Bye.
Bye.